All right, so let's look at this in a little bit more detail here. So again, for part 2, you're going to use one color that you've selected from part 1. You're going to identify that RGB and CMYK values for it, and you're going to use that for the basis for color part 2. So for this part of the assignment, there is no template. You're going to be building this using InDesign. The first thing you're going to do is research the color that you've chosen in your textbook, as well as other research resources to learn more about that specific hue or that specific color. What does it mean? Does it have any interesting associations? You might do a bit of research online about color theory and the meanings associated with that. You will then give a unique name to your color, and you will come up with something creative that describes that exact hue. Look at the names of colors for crayons and nail polish for inspiration. And then make a list of 25 words that relate to your color. Okay, so I would suggest just typing these out first, maybe using a Google Doc or something like that. Just creating a list of 25 words so that you have them in relation to that color. You could always explore a thesaurus or a website like WordNick to come up with different words for that process that might help you. And then in addition to that, you're going to look into any global or cultural associations within that hue that you have chosen. So colors mean different things around the world, and it's important to start to understand these connotations. So after you've completed your research, create a layout in InDesign showcasing the color's name as well as the words associated with its meaning. Limit yourself to 1 to 2 typefaces and create an interesting composition with the words on top of a large background of your researched color. In the bottom, create an area where you briefly explain at least 8 worldly and cultural associations with the color. Be sure to watch the lecture here that we've talked about in InDesign. Again, once you're done with this, this will be a single page that you'll have your 25 words, your unique name, and your 8 cultural global associations set somewhere along the bottom. And then you'll be saving this out as color part 2 PDF and submitting this to the assignment section for part 2. All right, I went ahead and we have the previous examples down here, which you guys can take a look at. So part 1, we have all of these. Part 2 are some different examples here, right? They're pulling with this green here for gloom, mint, they're calling it, looking at different words that are related to that. And again, I don't want you just to type out your words all on this composition. I want you to be using different variations of the typeface available, different weights, italic versions, condensed or extended versions of the typefaces that you use. And also try to reflect on some of those different colors that you might have pulled from your original color palette in relation to this color that you might be able to use as well. Looking at something like this that only has 2 colors, or I guess 3 essentially, is not quite as strong as something like this that introduces somewhere 4 to 5 colors based off of that palette you've created. All right, so these are all here for you guys to reference. You can see that again, they have the cultural meanings kind of shown differently along the bottom somewhere. This is up to you how you guys want to format this. But essentially that is going to be what we're working with for part 2. Any questions there for part 2? We're going to look at how to get this started here right now. Are there any questions on the details of the assignment? Okay. Real quick, I just wanted to note, I went ahead and added in the module the link to those high resolution image search engines down there at the bottom, just so you're not jumping around back to that initial post and stuff. So you guys can find that down there for part 1. I went ahead and just added in those search engines, okay? All right, let's do this. Let's spend a couple minutes looking at how we're going to use this for part 2, okay? Let's go with this one here. And let's say that again, I've gone through in part 1, I've found all 10 of my images. I have them all laid out here, so I'll have 10 pages here total. Depending on the format of these images, I'm choosing the correct template, whether it's vertical or horizontal. Based off of what I found, I want you to go in and select one color out of all the different colors that you have that you want to go ahead and attach the CMYK and RGB colors to. okay? So how can we find those CMYK and RGB colors? Well, it's fairly easy. We can come up here to the window and go into your actual color window up here. This right now will tell you that this is set up as an RGB color. You'll notice that right now it's giving me a number here that's related to each one of these colors: 98 red, 24 green, 25 blue. So those are the numbers that are associated with that RGB color combination, okay? So that's one way to see your RGB. Another way to see the color here in a little bit more detail is to double click on your color picker down here where it has the fill color. And this again will give you your breakdown. This is what we saw in that video right now of the RGB colors that are being used: 98, 24, 25, and the CMYK percentages that are being used to achieve this color, right? Because this is the same color, just broken down into two different color theories: your RGB as well as your CMYK. So I want you to note both of these down, and you might even just write it down so that we can type it back, okay? So I'm gonna write down my RGB, which is, my red is 98. And I'm looking at these numbers right here. My green is 24, and my blue is 25. And then for my CMYK percentages, I'm looking over here to the right where I can see that my cyan is at 35%, my magenta is at 93%, my yellow is at 84, and my K, or my black, is at 53. So those percentages are going to add up to my CMYK equivalents of that color. Does that make sense to everybody, where we can find those and dictate that? Awesome. So now that I have those noted down, I'm going to go ahead and go, okay, I'm good. I just needed to note those numbers. So let's come over here to my type tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and type, create a little text box here. And I'm just going to go ahead and put in the values of these. So R for my red is going to be 98. My green is 24. My blue is 25. For my CMYK, this is noted as percentages. So I would go, I'm just noting down what I've written based off of that color, right? Y is 84%, and my K, or my black, is 53%. And you can change your typeface here if you'd like to reflect something a little better instead of just the default there. But essentially that's what we're going to do, is we're going in, you're calling out one specific color here, and you're going to go ahead and state those RGB color profiles. Okay. Now that was related to this color here. So I'm going to go ahead and place that over this particular color. Now this is the only color I need to do this for in this entire part of part one. Okay. I can't see this very well because it's a dark typeface over this dark color. So if you are using a dark color like this, I would probably suggest selecting all of that text and just making it white instead. That way you can see that a little bit easier. But somehow we want to make sure that we get that on there. So now I'm done with part one with all 10 of my compositions. I have my RGB color space for my single color I've chosen and my CMYK. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab both of these and copy them, because I'm going to use them for my new document here. So by grabbing the color itself and the breakdown of that RGB, I'm going to go up to edit and copy. And now I'm going to create my new document for part two. So I'm going to come in here and create a new document. We're going to work with the letter size document off of this, or for this project. So I'm going to go to print, letter document. It's up to you if you want to work with this on landscape or portrait. I'm going to go ahead and work with landscape on mine. So I'm going to go ahead and designate that. I don't need facing pages on this. I only need one page. So the default for all of this should be fine. I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And now I have my new page where I can start to put in my part two here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste that color and that breakdown. I'm just going to bring it over to the side of my artboard here, just so I have that. because that's what I'm pulling from part one, right? That's what I need to utilize here. And the first thing I want to do is I actually want to create a large frame here that's going to flood my background with this color that I've chosen. So with my rectangle tool, I'm going to come, and this is really up to you how you want to go about designing this, but I'm going to come from the bottom left, and I'm just going to come about, this far up in the page, allowing a little bit of space for my title. And I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to just select that color of the box that I have, okay? Because I'm choosing this color, I want that color to really fill the dominant space within my part two. So again, by creating a rectangle that is the size of that page roughly, leaving a little space on top, I can use my eyedropper tool to then select that color. Of course, I could always go into this and enter in the numerical qualities of that if I wanted to as well. That's the beauty of this, right? I can enter in that RGB or CMYK breakdown. And of course, I can see that that corresponds to what I have written down here as well. So that's all well and good. So the next thing I want to do is I want to come up with a creative title for my color, right? And this is, again, where you guys get to be a little bit creative, think about something kind of fun, right? You can refer to things like crayon colors or lipsticks, nail polish. A lot of those use creative paint colors. They use creative names to come up with something interesting. For this one here, I'm just going to create a little text box, and we'll just title this one. We'll just have some fun with this one. We'll just do our designer red here, since we're all design worlds. So if you remember, you can use two typefaces for this assignment. So if you want to go into your Adobe fonts, you can download new Adobe fonts for this if you wanted to. Remember, you have access to all these Adobe fonts within your Creative Cloud suite. You can browse fonts that you want to for this. Try to find contrasting fonts, maybe a serif and a sans serif typeface that would work well together. And also the typefaces that you choose, whoops, oh, I'm in Perry's. The typefaces that you choose are going to, actually, you know what, I'm in the wrong login here, sorry. Let me log out of this. Don't mean to be in Perry's. Typefaces that you choose do have different options for them, right? So some typefaces are going to have a lot of options within them, others are not. So I would probably choose something that does have some variation with inside the space. Let's just look at this one right here, this Oasis, or actually Ronia, sorry. So this Ronia typeface here is the sans serif typeface, right? I can see that there are 28 fonts available in here. So I have different versions of italic, bold, semi-bold, extra bold, condensed. This is great because I want to create some versatility within the options that I have to use for this typeface. So I think this would work really well for this assignment because it has some options here, okay? So let me go ahead and activate these different ones. I'm just going to click on the top right, activate both of these. Now I can use those. And maybe I want to go back and look for one other typeface to use in this assignment as well. Maybe instead of a sans serif, I want to use something that is a little bit more decorative, potentially. Maybe like a serif title here. Let's try this one. Sure, let's try this one as well. This has some nice contrast from the other one. So we have Superior and Ron something or other. I can't remember what the other one was, Rania or something. Superior and Rania. Okay, so we downloaded those two typefaces. Come back to our working file. I'm going to go ahead and use one of these that I just downloaded. Superior Black for my title. Make that a little bit bigger. Maybe not that big. And I'm going to use this for essentially the title of my color here, right? So we have Designer Red. I'm actually going to go ahead and change this color again to the color that I'm using. You can use the eyedropper tool for that. And you can do this however you want. A lot of times students like to kind of place this within the space so it feels like it's connected. and then start to place your words inside there, but you don't have to do it this way. Totally up to you. That gives us a start though. We have our title in here, what we're calling this. Now what we're going to start to go through is go in and create those 25 descriptive words of this, as well as the cultural meanings. Christine, I see that you added a comment down here in the chat asking, can we use any fonts from the Adobe deal? And yes, you can. You can use any typefaces you want for this one. Again, I would just encourage you to choose something that is going to have some options within it, like italic, bold, so on and so forth. We're going to come up with our 25 words here. So this will be up to you guys. You know, you'll be doing your research about this, so on and so forth. I'm just going to kind of come up with some arbitrary words here just to kind of get this started. Again, just to kind of create something over here. I'm going to just, I'm kind of going off of the cuff here, but I'm going to come up with a few different words. I'm going to come up with powerful, some words, and you guys can type something in the chat here if you think of anything. Anger, potentially, maybe with like color red, right? Or rage even. Let's see, what's another couple options? Passion, maybe, could be something that would come with that. I'm kind of skipping a step here, right? Where I'm not going through all the research, but just kind of going off of what comes off top of my head. Love, love maybe even, or war, possibly even as well. So I'm just going to come up with a few words here so we can see what we're working with. So in total, you're going to come up with 25 words that describe this, right? And then based off of these words, I want to go ahead and use those typefaces that I've come up with here as well. So if I just go ahead and select all of those, I can convert these to the typeface that I had selected, that Ronnie, I believe it was called. Did that one not go through? Yeah, RONN. Let's see if we can find it here. That's weird. I don't see that one that we just selected. Go back into here real quick. They are activated. Am I still under mine or is this under Perry's? Oh, okay, I'm sorry guys. I had to log in to Perry's here. So it's not corresponding with mine, but that's okay. But we have the other one. We'll use something different for the time being. Let's go with something else over here that I already have downloaded that has some options in it. We'll go with this Mensch. So this is where you're going to go through and start to position these differently. So again, with all of these sort of typed out, these 24 different words, you're going to play with the different typefaces that you had available. I can also use the other typeface that I had here, Super Clarendon. I realize these aren't the ones that I actually had downloaded, and I apologize, but just for time's sake, we'll keep it moving. So I'm just going to change a couple of these to the different typefaces that we've selected. Again, this is where you can come in and pull from part one. And actually what I probably could have done from the very beginning is pulled this entire color palette over. So go to edit and copy, and moving back over here to my new one. I could drop this whole one in over here so I can reference all of these colors. And you can use any of these colors here for your specific words inside here, right? So if I want to place this inside here, increase the size of this slightly, I would encourage you guys to use some that are larger, some that are smaller. Rotate some of these maybe. So we have another word, love, here. I'll select this. This time I'll use the lighter red color. Make this one a little bit larger. Maybe even a bold option of that. And just start to kind of work these around the space. Now you can also rotate these. I would keep your axes to be vertical and horizontal. You can see how you can start to kind of, pair these and work these around the space itself. And I'm just going to go through and do a couple of these here. Grab that blue color, You can use different variations within the text, different sizing. And you're really just working to create some sort of interesting composition here, utilizing all of these different words that you're bringing into the space, right? As I'm going through this, do you guys have any questions right now? How many colors can we use for the 25 words? I would not use any more colors than you had for that color palette that you'd chosen for that specific color. So because this red one here had the 5 colors here from my color palette, you can use any of those ones from the color palette, but I wouldn't go beyond that. Does that make sense, Christine? And, you know, don't be afraid to, again, use uppercase, use lowercase, use the different options as far as the style and the colors that you have. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about, start to curate this space. Whoops. So all I'm doing is I'm just adjusting all the, you know, the type sizes here. You can also do things like adjust the type formatting. So for example, here, if I wanted to space out this word war a lot, I could adjust that tracking to really space out those letter forms potentially. That's going to have a different look and feel. And maybe I really want to make that war extra big. So having it be really large inside that space. And I'm just looking for ways to align things to potentially, you know, create some sort of interaction here within the space. No right and wrong to this. Just looking at ways to basically create some strong composition inside there. Right now I'm in my working mode or my normal mode. So if I come down here to the very bottom and go to preview, I can see what this is starting to look like without all those bounding boxes on it, and actually what it's going to look like when it's finally submitted a little bit more. So once you've gotten to a space here, you know, you may want to go in and reorganize these potentially to make it fit stronger or whatever you need to do. But essentially, you're going to build off of this using the color palette that you've created from part 1, pulling that one color and really focusing on that color, utilizing words that describe that color, the emotional qualities, things that you find within the research. And then lastly, I want you to create some sort of space down here along the bottom, wherever it is, that includes some sort of cultural meanings around the world. And for this particular one here, I could just really look at cultural meanings for red around the world, right? Even though this is a very specific color red, I'm really kind of opening up the umbrella here towards a larger category of red and how this is interpreted within different meanings, different cultural aspects, and try to note some of those. All right, and you're going to include that in the bottom. Once you're done with all this, you'll save it out as an InDesign file, and then you'll also save this out as your PDF, and that will be what you'll submit for part 2 to this assignment.